The Ohio River shaped how our region was settled and inspired its growth. Today, we use it much differently than in the past, and one new plan has reimagined how to incorporate the river into our community. Today, we will learn more about the Ohio River Vision and Strategic Plan that's coming up next on WNIN Newsmakers. Welcome to WNIN Newsmakers. I'm April Nading. The Evansville Region Economic Partnership, or EREP, recently released a new vision for the area titled the Ohio River Vision and Strategic Plan. This plan has a lot of suggestions for potential improvements in our area, and here to discuss it more with us are Lloyd Winnicky and Josh Armstrong from EREP. Lloyd and Josh, thank you so much for being here.
Our pleasure.
We have talked before. In past lives, right? So tell us about why the plan was created and how did it come about?
So the plan came to me almost in a dream on January 2nd, 2021. And I woke up this morning and I turned to I called one of my colleagues. I said, we need to do something about the river. As a community, we've been asking for this since 1928. It's the first documented plan that said, we need a more active riverfront. And we just went and printed out a map and put Post-it notes on it and said, what could it be if we combined all of our plans right now? We came and visited you, and you said, run with it. Mm-hmm. And then we advanced the plan, found supporters and funders, moved forward with the plan.
Talk about the 1928 plan just for a moment. Did we do the things that were in that plan? I mean, is that what the riverfront is now? What was in that plan?
That is not what was suggested for the riverfront.
So the riverfront today is really a reflection of Thunder on the Ohio. That concrete amphitheater that is there, that's not all that attractive and not used, was really constructed for the powerboat races because we attracted, for a period of time, did attract thousands of people every summer to the riverfront. But that's, the design you see today was built around that.
Wow. That's pretty, I mean, and now we don't have that.
Right.
So
there you go.
It's kind of idle, isn't it?
Holy guacamole, we need something new, right?
So how would you summarize the main points of this new plan?
Well, it's tough to summarize, but I'll start and then kick it to Josh. But we really looked at 50 miles of improvements from Newburgh to Mount Vernon. And Sasaki, our partner in this, went out and did outreach throughout this entire region. They got input from 10,000 points of contact. People saying, this is what we'd like here, we expect this here, we'd really love to have this there. And Sasaki came back and presented beautiful artistic renderings of what they heard from the public. So this is not just a consultant who thinks, oh, I've seen this in this market, we should suggest this. They erped up what we told them.
And I am assuming they also didn't they maybe take some things from other markets as well to implement? I'm guessing, yes.
Very few precedents. Every river is unique, and especially our river here. And over those 50 miles, Mount Vernon has a very different riverfront from Evansville.
Than we do, right?
Here in downtown Evansville, we have a 40-foot rise and fall of the river. So that is dramatically different than other communities they work in. Lloyd really hit the point that this is a representation of what the community said they wanted. From the number one thing that people said they wanted, a place to eat and drink, to look at the river. Number two, places to engage with their friends and family of all ages. Number three, ways to get down to the water. Our plan in all three of those downtowns, and for the spaces in between, all relate back to what our neighbors told us they wanted.
So when you talk about it, the number one thing was a place to eat and drink down on the river. Are they talking about restaurants?
Yes.
And not picnic tables?
Yes.
Yeah, no, they want to go to a nice restaurant or a casual restaurant, a restaurant where they can go and spend time with family, spend time with friends, have a meal, have a cocktail, whatever their pleasure might be. But it would be, theoretically new construction and a look the likes of which we've never contemplated in our community before.
Why is it you think we haven't had that before?
Well, I think we're not. Most cities along the Ohio River and most major rivers in the United States turned their back to the river because they were afraid of it. It was unknown. It flooded.
What is it? Flooding,
Correct.
Obviously, is a big concern.
And so as we see throughout our region, the 37 flood was not just Evansville. This was a massive Ohio River Valley flood. Lots of places built walls and blocked out the entire riverfront, created levees that were unsurmountable and you weren't able to see through. We had a lot of those pieces here that as the dams became and the damming became more sophisticated, the timing of it, the understanding of weather became more sophisticated, less and less of that was, maybe that was overkill. We don't want to ever underestimate the power of the river to flood, but maybe that was overkill. And so this chance came for us in the 80s and 90s to reduce it a bit. I think the chance is there now more because we understand with our help from Sasaki that we can engage with it in a different way. We don't need to be afraid of flooding.
And I think another reason why we don't have what has been proposed today, because, one, you need a collective vision from a region. You have to have a lot of buy-in from the corporate community, from local government, from philanthropy, nonprofits, all have to buy into this. At the end of the day, if there are going to be places to eat and drink on a section of the river from Mount Vernon to Newburgh, private sector is going to have to be involved. So you're going to have people restaurateurs, bar owners, that will have to take a risk, a financial risk. And local government can't make you, a restaurateur, go out and do that. You have to have that drive to do it. So I think now is a really great point in our region's history where there's a lot of momentum. When you think about 10,000 points of contact with ideas, either in person or through an email or whatever, that's a lot. That says a lot about what people want. They want to get back to the river.
And it helps get the buy-in
Absolutely.
of the community,
Sure.
the private sector, and everything. And then to your point, where you was talking about, it's not like someone could just open up a restaurant on the river. There's a lot more involved than that. Where would they put it, and how would they, and to make sure it's? One of the concerns you've already talked about, but flooding. I know, and you said that now they have different things they can do to where they don't have to be so gun shy about putting something along the river.
Correct. So floodable lawn. So we can go upriver and look in the Louisville Waterfront Park. There's a floodable lawn, and as the water recedes, the lawn is reopened. So we can do things like that. Sasaki has worked extensively on the Chicago River with the Riverwalk that has 2 stories of consumer businesses that they close the door when the water rises. And when the water falls, 12 hours later, it's reopened. So there's it's just a different time in how we can look at the flooding. Again, I don't want to say anything that you're going to need
Nothing
to edit
bad
that.
will ever happen, or because you don't know. But
Of course there's going to be floods. Of course there are. But
Right.
this is a plan that respects floods, drafted by hydrology experts,
right.
with the support of the Army Corps of Engineers, based on, as Lloyd has talked about, resident input as to what they want on their river. So it even goes down to some small barrier islands placed in strategic points on the Oxbow to change the currents to maybe eliminate some of the driftwood that washes up on our shore.
Right.
I think if you look at what Sasaki has done with Cincinnati, they're working on phase 9 of a riverfront plan there. So if you can go online, or maybe a viewer knows that area between Paul Brown Stadium, where the Bengals play, and the Great American Ballpark, where the Reds play, all that floods on a regular basis. And so again, it floods, the waters recede, and the area is able to be cleaned and reused. And a similar concept is being contemplated here.
Wow, and I mean, I think that sounds encouraging, because I know that's one of the things people automatically think of is, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But it's good to know they have a plan. Now, why was there such an effort to incorporate the 3 areas, not just Evansville? We're including Newburgh and Mount Vernon.
So we're the Evansville Regional Economic Partnership, and we think regionally, we act regionally, and we believe in the power of transforming. Our region is done in small places, but where other people can access it. We know downtown Evansville is the geographic center almost of our region, at least along the riverfront. It is the center for business and center for commerce and banking, and we can go on and on with all the things that happen here in downtown Evansville. But we have these other beautiful riverfronts that need attention too. All of these riverfronts benefit folks that don't live anywhere near the river. People that live in Princeton, Gibson County. Further out than that, we want them to come enjoy our riverfront, have a nice meal, spend the money here, maybe spend the night here, go out for breakfast the next day, again, looking at the river, and then going back to Jasper or wherever, saying how great Evansville was.
So on a really large scale, we're talking about improving the quality of life in our region. So if the Newburgh riverfront is transformed into something like Sasaki has suggested, or maybe it's an altered version of that, the same thing happens in Mount Vernon and the same thing that happens here. Those are all reasons why people want to live in a community. One of our driving forces at EREP is to help drive population growth. And that's a great goal to have. It's hard to do.
Right.
I mean, you just can't say we have a goal of wanting to increase population, but you just don't, there's not a silver bullet for that.
Right.
But by making these kinds of investments, dreaming and thinking big about improving quality of life, people want, if a business is thinking about expanding here or relocating here, the number one thing they worry about is quality of life. Will my employees like it in that community? Yes, they're curious about incentives and they want to know this and that about how government at all levels can help, but most importantly, they want to know about the quality of life. And that means a lot of things to a lot of people, but making these kinds of investments, large scale, and this is a 20 to 25 year plan. This is not something that's going to be done in 3 years.
Right. But you have to have that kind of planning. I mean, because for one thing, it is gradual, like you said. And then to your point also, it is a community. And so someone might work in Evansville, relocate and move in, and work in Evansville, but then they could live in Newburgh and Mount Vernon and enjoy those amenities. Now, it seems like Mount Vernon's big plan had more of an emphasis on promoting events, and Mount Vernon's or Newburgh was more on retail and townhomes. So was that what, I gather, like you said, you had the number one thing from Evansville, and then these were the number ones for those areas?
Well, I think more the story in Mount Vernon is how do we make Mount Vernon and Posey County a really compelling place to live? It is a great place to do business. Our largest employers are there. But unfortunately, the population hasn't stayed. So what are some of the things that community, that county, and the city of Mount Vernon can do? Quality of place initiatives are a great way to start, and they've been doing that with Riddlebank Park and other examples. All right, so let's make a really compelling riverfront that does have those events, but also in the plan there is housing that is shown through the sort of the center block at Water and Main Street. Dozens and dozens of units of housing. Let's find a way to get that done. Also, let's find a way to create a compelling neighborhood so a developer comes along and says, wait, I'm going to put a 50-home subdivision here for those folks that work at Sabic or AstraZeneca or wherever. That's, I think, the real meat and potatoes there. I think the meat and potatoes is adding townhomes is, again, it's to add population. So the town of Newburgh, I love the town of Newburgh, but it is not growing because there are not the kinds of housing that a lot of people want to live in, and some of the older housing stock is not as well maintained as it should be. So how do we make that desirable? How do we make that a great place to live? The town wants more people. Townhomes are a solution that fits the architecture and the feeling of that space, creating more retail demand. It is a special place to be, to walk around, experience, but the retail experience, there's not a lot there.
Right.
There could certainly be more. Well, you have to, retail follows roofs. We need to build roofs in order to get more of that retail.
You have to have more people living there who need the retail, what the retailers have to offer.
Correct.
Okay. But for those people who are not living or working downtown, it seems like, okay, more people are living on the east side or whatever. Why would there be so much emphasis on downtown?
Well, think about this. Think about your favorite city. And what do you think about that city? You probably don't think, man, they have the best suburbs. That's not how we think. We think about what is available in your favorite city's downtown.
Right.
And to Josh's point earlier, downtown Evansville is the economic hub of our region. So if we're not making investment in the hub of our community, why are people coming downtown? In fact, the community has been making investments here for the last 10 to 15 years. You look at the Victory Theater, you look at the Old National Events Plaza, you look at the Ford Center, you look at the Victory, you look at the Stone Family Center for Health Sciences. So we don't, and this week we just broke ground on the Vault on Main. So we're not going to halt and think, oh, we have all the investment we can have. No, we want more investment so more people come downtown and enjoy it, whether it's restaurants or bars or retail shops. There are plenty of opportunities, but it's all about investing in your core city, because that's what draws. If you think about Nashville, downtown Nashville is hot.
Right.
Downtown Indianapolis, hot.
Right.
So downtown Evansville is getting hotter.
Well, when we have people come in from out of town, we take them to the river.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just because it's one of the high points. And so it makes perfect sense to me to certainly develop along that area and make it more appealing.
If on any given night during the fall, winter, and some spring, there may be a hockey game or a basketball game, a concert, or maybe there's a concert at the Ford Center, the Philharmonics performing at the Victory, all in one night. So you may have 12 to 15,000 people downtown on any given night. That's all good. That's a good thing for not just the city, but for the region.
It's a great thing.
I think another thing to consider is downtown is everyone's neighborhood, whether it's downtown Mount Vernon or downtown Newburgh. This is a place that when we look at the data of who's here, because we look at people's cell phone data, we understand who's in these various parts of our community. This has the highest level of income mixing. We have some of our most affluent residents here and some of our least affluent residents here. But everyone gets a chance to enjoy that time on the river. Everyone gets to walk up and down Main Street and see the investments that have been made, the change that's happened here. So this is a continuation of a successful strategy of investing in downtown. Lloyd went through a lot of it, but I can go further. Almost 500 new units of housing in the last 10 years. Think of how big a subdivision with 500 units of housing is.
It's big.
And we've done it on 2 blocks. 500 hotel rooms, dozens and dozens of small businesses, several large and rapidly growing employers that are helping push our community forward in terms of pay for their employees and benefits and bringing really skilled workers into our community. That's what's happening in downtown Evansville. The river is the next step.
So you talked about it, this is like a 25-year plan, but what can we expect? How is it going to get started? When will we start seeing something?
Well, one of the things that has to happen right away is each community has to dig into the plan and say, oh yeah, we really like that. Or maybe you could build this over there instead of here, or they need to make their own priorities. So that's the most immediate thing that has to happen.
And then what? And how long do you think that will take? Will it be a course of over years, or, I mean, that's why, I mean, I think, can see where people think, we want this to happen sooner rather than later, but it takes time.
It does take time, and we need some quick wins, and I think you'll start to see a few, you'll see signs of growth moving in that direction. What we have to also do at EREP is help our local units of government and the state connect with federal sources and philanthropic sources of funds to put this together. This is not inexpensive. And so we have to keep that work alive until we get to the point that we break ground. And then once we have all the funding secured and everything's signed and ready to go, and the governor is here and the Secretary of Transportation from the U.S. government, or whoever is here to celebrate what we're doing here,
Right.
then EREP gets to sort of turn it over and let the municipalities, et cetera, finish that work.
And there will be so many components in each community. It's not like, downtown Evansville is going to start in a year. There might be 40 or 50 components just in downtown Evansville that may all start, some may start simultaneously, some may not. As developers are identified, as sources of funding are identified, all that is a real, it's a challenge, but it comes with any opportunity for development.
I think additionally, for everyone to keep in mind, this is a 620-page plan loaded with suggestions that don't have visual outcomes but are really, really important, like understanding stormwater runoff, like what are we doing about agricultural runoff and the impact that has on our river. What are the partnerships that are missing across our region that we need to nurture or establish? How do we do this? It's big, it's daunting.
Right.
It's 50 miles of riverfront and tens of millions of gallons of water a day going past. But the plan is broken down in a way that we can continue to do this work, both visible and not so visible as we move forward.
What do you think was the biggest surprise to you from the plan when you finally got to look at it?
I'll take a run of this first. I would say just the transformative nature of the renderings. I mean, there are some really, oh, wow, visual elements to this that people are going to say, yes, we need to do this.
I think for me is how individual comments from individual residents ended up in the plan. I was at a meeting and someone spoke about basketball on the riverfront. That's ended up in the plan. I was at another meeting where a teenager said that she goes to the riverfront to relax and she needed a place where she could sit and be calm and de-stress her life. And we can see those particular comments become actual points on a plan.
Wow, that is neat. Now, where can somebody go if they want to look at the plan themselves?
So evansvilleregion.com, and there's an initiative section on our landing page. Pull down, and you'll see all the great work we do, because we do a lot of things.
Great work, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you'll see Riverfront, and you can pull that down. There's a few downloads on there. Again, this plan is 620 pages, but there is a plan summary of about 70 pages that should give you a pretty good idea of what the plan's about.
And pictures.
And lots of pictures.
Okay, great. Well, I think really we could talk about this for a couple of hours, but now we're out of time.
Or 20 or 30 years.
Right, yeah. But it is exciting. I really appreciate you guys coming in to explain it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
After the press release of the Ohio River Vision and Strategic Plan last week, we had a chance to speak with Anna Kors, Principal Landscape Architect from Sasaki, about her thoughts on the creation of the plan.
I think that right now people don't entirely embrace the Ohio River in a way that they could. The potential here is just immense. I remember walking out and seeing the Ohio River for the first time and just being blown away. It's breathtaking. It's just so astounding that you have that as an asset in your downtowns. It's also the Ohio River, so you have the Army Corps, you have a lot of engineering challenges. And the Ohio River, it wants to flood. It naturally has huge levels of fluctuation. And so how do you design a space that can handle that flood, so you're not just preventing it, but also creating very safe spaces that are programmed and activated throughout the years? I think personally we love a design challenge. We see the challenge as a great way to create opportunities. So thinking about the flooding, thinking about sightlines, thinking about activation, that all informs how we design. So form and function are really tied together, and so that's going to create the most, I think, beautiful process and kind of beautiful design, because it is always thinking about those two systems and really complementing each other. We kept coming back to these different concepts, specifically around the riverfront park, and this idea that you had to create an elevation where you don't want flood, and then using that idea to create the form of the bend. And so we actually used that form to then create program. And so I think that hard engineering challenge is what unlocked this really beautiful potential of the bend itself. So I think that's been one of the favorite, I say for myself, but also for the team. We really love using that to tie into a bigger story. So everything we do is universally accessible. So that's why we had a diagram that talked about all the different ways to get around the riverfront, including down to the river. And there's quite a bit of grade change, but we want to think about accessibility and users of all types. Sometimes you want to walk and run and bike really fast. Other times you don't. Other times you might have mobility challenges. So ensuring that everyone feels equally comfortable in this place. Parks and green spaces are part of our city's infrastructure. They're needed more than ever to create places to come together, to connect, but also places to sort of get away from technology and sort of de-stress and kind of have that mental sort of respite in a city. So absolutely, we're seeing cities invest in this because it is such an important part of a community. We do work all across the country, all across the world, and when we see the vision that was written into the RFP, we know that there's a commitment here from the client, from the community, to really see this through, and that's something that we look for, and we want to find that partnership, because this is not something we do and leave. We want to be here for the next decade working with you all to make sure this vision is a reality. The community has been so committed and thoughtful in their communication with us and what they want to see, I think encouraged, and we're just really excited about taking this to the next level and keep pushing this forward with Josh and the team.
Thanks to our guests for joining us to talk about the Ohio River Vision and Strategic Plan. I'm April Nading. Thanks for watching WNIN Newsmakers.